So this lesson is on simplifying expressions. Before we start, you need to make sure you either have a printed copy of the notes, they're right here. You need to make sure you have a graphing calculator and something to write with. Alright, so let's get started. Again, throughout this entire video, everything I'm doing, you should be writing down or typing on your worksheet. Okay? Every step I write, you should also be writing down. And if I get too fast and you need to pause it, that's perfectly fine. Pause the video and get caught up. Okay? So here we go. Example 1. We're going to start by combining like terms. So I'm going to start with this 10x. I'm going to look through my problem and see where is another x. That doesn't have an x, but this has an x. Okay? And when we combine, we always use the sign that is in front of what we're combining. So I'm going to do 10x. It's a minus 3x. And if you need to use your calculator, you can. 10 minus 3 is 7. So when I combine my x's, I get 7x. Okay, I did my x's. Now I'm going to do my whole numbers. I got a 42, and then I got minus 13. So let's grab our calculator. 42 minus 13 gives me 29. Just like before, the other video that we did, I think it was lesson 1, if you get a positive answer, which we did, we got positive 29, then that means your sign is going to be a plus. If we got a negative answer, our sign would be a minus. Okay, so that's my answer for example 1, 7x plus 29. Example 2, let's start with our whole numbers just because that's the first one. I got a negative 22. That has an a, so I'm not going to combine that. And then I got a minus 33. So let's type that in. Remember, negatives down here at the bottom. Negative 22 minus 33. And that gives me negative 55. All right, let's do our a's. I got a positive 7a and a plus 2a. So I'm going to do 7 plus 2. And that gives me 9a. And again, it was a positive, which means this is going to be a plus. All right, I want you guys to pause it. And no, let me do number 3 with you. Because there's something different. I'll show you in a second. All right, our m's. Let's combine these m's. I got a 9m minus 6m. So I'm going to do 9 minus 6. And that gives me 3. Put your m with it. All right, and this is where I said don't do it on your own because this is a little bit different. This minus 2, I'm going to treat it as a negative 2, okay? And then this minus 14 at the end, I'm going to type in as a minus 14. So when I type this in, I'm going to type in negative 2 minus 14. So let's type that in. Negative 2 minus 14. And you get negative 16. And remember, if you get a negative answer, that just means your sign is going to be minus. So now I really do want you to pause it. Why don't you guys go ahead and try 4 and 5, and then when you unpause it, we'll go over it. Okay, hopefully you have tried 4 and 5. I'm going to go through them. 2 and 9, I'm going to combine those. 2 plus 9 is 11. My y's, again, this is like the last problem. We're going to treat this as a negative 4. Let me do it in a different color. We're going to treat this as a negative 4. And then plus 6. So if you type that in, negative 4 plus 6, you get a positive 2. And remember, we're going to put the y with it. And if it's a positive, that means we're going to be using a plus sign. So example 4, you should have gotten 11 plus 2y. All right, example 5, our whole numbers. 22 minus 22 is 0. You can put the 0 or not. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to count it wrong. I'm not going to put a 0 because there's really no need for it. So 22 minus 22 is 0. Those just kind of canceled out. Our ends, let's combine those. I got 3 minus 6, and if you typed that in, 3 minus 6, you get negative 3. And again, you got to put that in with it. So the whole number's canceled, the 22 is canceled, and 3n minus 6n is negative 3n. All right, example 6, we're going to add a step now. If a number is outside of a parentheses, that means we're going to distribute. So I'm going to take this 4 and I'm going to distribute it. So I'm going to bring this 1 down. I'm not messing with that 1. And I'm going to distribute. Distribute really just means multiply. So right here I'm going to multiply 4 times 12. 4 times 12. And I got a positive, so that means it's going to be a plus 48. Okay, I'm going to multiply again. I'm going to multiply here. 4 times, now, again, like before, I'm going to treat this as a negative 5. 4 times negative 5. And that gives me negative 20. So, because it's a negative, it's going to be a minus 20. So 4 times 5 was 20. And then this 5 had an x, so I'm going to bring an x down. Okay? Now I want to look and see what can I combine. Well, I can combine these two whole numbers. 1 plus 48 is 49. And then I'm going to bring down minus 20x. All right, let's try example 7. Again, this 5 is outside of the parentheses, which means I'm going to distribute. Before I do, I'm going to bring down 8x. Nothing's happening with that 8x. And I'm going to distribute. 5 times 4, if you don't know, 5 times 4 is 20. And it's a positive 20, so I'm going to put plus 20. I multiplied, that 4 has an x with it, so that means the 20 will also have an x. Okay, I'm going to multiply again. 5 times 3 is 15, and it's a positive 15. Okay, last step, we need to see what we can combine. I got an x and I got another x, so I can add them up. 8 plus 20 is 28x. And then I'm going to bring down plus 15. Example 8, all right, same thing, we just have two distributions now, but that's fine. So I'm going to take this 8 and I'm going to distribute. 8 times 2 is 16, and because that 2 had an x, I'm going to bring an x down. 8 times 4, 8 times 4 is 32, and it's positive. All right, now this part is a little bit tricky. I'm going to treat this as a negative 4. Same thing, I'm going to treat this as a negative 8. So let's multiply. Negative 4 times 5. Negative 4 times 5. And that gives me a negative 20. If it's a negative, we're going to put a minus 20. And because that 5 had an x, that 20 will also have an x. So let's multiply again. A negative 4 times a negative 8. Negative 4 times negative 8. And that gives me 32. And it's a positive, so that means it's a plus. Now we're going to go through combine like terms. That's an x, and that's an x. So let's combine them. I got 16, and then it's a minus 20. And that gives you negative 4. Keep the x. All right, let's do whole numbers. I got 32 plus 32. 32 plus 32 gives me 64. And it's positive, so it'll be a plus. Okay, I want you guys to try example 9. Pause it, and when you unpause it, we'll go over it. Hopefully you tried example 9. Here's how it goes. 3 times x is just 3x. Treat this as a negative 2. 3 times negative 2 is a negative 6. This is a negative 9 that I'm going to multiply. Negative 9 times 2 is negative 18. Negative 9 times 4 is negative 36. And because that 4 had an x, I'm going to bring an x down. And last up, combining our like terms, 3x minus 36x is negative 33x. Okay, our whole numbers. Treat this as a negative 6, so I'm going to type this in. Negative 6 minus 18. Negative 6 minus 18. And that gives you negative 24. So that's our answer there. These problems I absolutely love because you can type them straight in your calculator. So here we go. I'm just going to type in example 10. I got 4 plus 8 times 4 divided by 2 minus 19. And that answer is 1. So if you would please try typing in 11, pause it, and when you unpause it, we'll do it together. All right, hopefully you did 11. 9 times 3 plus 14 divided by 7 minus 10 gives you 19. So the answer to 11 is 19. Okay, these next one, these lines, they mean absolute value. Absolute value is always a positive number. And I'm going to show you your calculator will do absolute value. So here we go. I'm going to type this in. 33 minus. To get to absolute value, here's what you're going to press. So grab your calculator and do this with me. You're going to press second. Second is that yellow button. And then you're going to press 0. And that very first one, ABS, that stands for absolute value. So we're going to hit enter. And then you type what's inside your absolute value, which is 16 minus 8. And close your parentheses. And hit enter. And the answer to 12 is 25. All right, let's do 13, and then I'm going to leave you alone to try 14. So here we go again. I got 25 plus, again, the way you get to absolute value, you press second, 0, and it's the very first one, so hit enter. And it's 2 minus 14, close your parentheses, and you get 37. So I want you to pause it, I want you to try 14, and then we'll check it. So hopefully you tried 14. Here's what you should have typed in. 20 minus second 0, enter. So the absolute value of 26 minus 15, close your parentheses, and you get 9. So that's absolute value. Absolute value, you press second, 0, enter. All right, last set. I think this is, yes, last 3. When you have division and there's more than one thing on top, it's really easy. We're going to just divide. We're going to divide both of them. So I'm going to start right here. 16 divided by 4 is 4. And now I'm going to divide here. So this is really like a negative 12 divided by 4. Negative 12 divided by 4. And that gives you a negative 3. Remember, if it's a negative, you put a minus. Now, because when we divided, the top one had an x, that means there's going to be an x with that 3. Let's do another one just to make sure we got this. So I'm going to start dividing here. 14 divided by negative 2, that's negative 7. And because the 14 had a y, the negative 7 will also have a y. Now I'm going to divide here. I'm going to type this in just so that you can see. I'm going to do negative 18 divided by, and I got a negative 2. Now that gives me a positive 9. And if we get a positive, that means it's going to be a plus. So again, one more time. Pause it. I want you to try example 17, and then we'll check your answer. So 17, you should have divided here. 36 divided by negative 4. That's negative 9. And then divide here. 48 divided by negative 4. And that gives you negative 12. So I'm going to put minus 12. Because that 48 had a y, that 12 gets a y. So now that we've done all these examples, you can see down at the bottom, they're the same type of problems. Let me give you some hints, some things that I didn't cover. Right here, if there's just an x, what I would do is I would put a 1 right there. So then what you're really adding is 1x plus 8x. Here also, I didn't include one like this when there's 3 things on top. It works the exact same way. You'll divide your first one, so you'll do 14 divided by negative 2, get your answer. You'll divide your middle, so you'll do negative 8 divided by negative 2, get your answer. Then you'll do your third one, 12 divided by negative 2. And I think, let me go through the rest and make sure there's none that we didn't cover. Yep, you should be good. Let's look at 12 right here. Again, if there's no number, I always put a 1 there. So like you'll distribute your 3 times n, 3 times 14. I would put a 1 right here, and then I would distribute negative 1 times 7, negative 1 times 4, negative 1 times negative 2. 13 and 14, you just type in your calculator. Yeah, okay, so you should be good. So what I want you to do now is do 1 through 14. I want you to save it and turn it in. Thanks.